Hey everybody, welcome to the installation video for Chat Assistant. In today's video I'm going to go over each of the steps here to install the Chat Assistant, and in addition to that we'll be showing you some of the optional, well, not optional, but the code that you'll have to modify in order to create custom connectors and get things up and running real quick. Alright, so to begin with, let's zoom in on this document a little bit more. And let's see if we can get my fingers working here. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into Azure, and you're going to need to make sure that you have access to the service. And the reason I'm a little bit hesitant is because maybe we want to start with some prerequisite pieces as well. Let me jump back over here into the Chat Assistant, which is on GitHub, which is where you're going to go. Link will be in the description below, and for that you'll need to essentially just download everything. But the features and requirement has some interesting tidbits of information in here. I'm going to scroll down to this area, the requirements. So let's talk about the requirements. You're going to need Power Platform. You're going to need premium licensing. This software uses Dataverse. It uses custom connectors, all of which you're going to need a premium license. The next thing is you're going to need Azure and a subscription to Azure. So if you don't have one, go ahead and create a free one. I think it give you like $200 to start with, and then you'll have to start paying for it out of your pocket. The other thing too that is interesting to note, and this is where I was a little bit reluctant to decide whether or not to go back or circle back and give this information here in the installation video, but I thought it might be helpful because if you run across this, then it's going to be good to know this going in. OpenAI services inside of Azure are not, or wasn't originally open to the public. I don't know what the status is at the moment. They may still be taking in applications to gain access. If you do find yourself in this situation, come to this document. Again, it's on GitHub, and click on this apply. Okay, so let's see if we can do that here live in the video. I guess in the viewer it's not clickable, but in any event, and I can't copy either. Anyway, so if you click on this link here, it'll take you to Voice of the Customer in Microsoft, and you'll fill out the form, and in about 2 weeks-ish, you'll wind up getting access into the service, okay? And with that being said, the other thing to note is that there are some hard limits. Now, the application, the Canvas app, has been programmed already for these known limits at the moment. But if they do change, you'll have to go in and change and or adjust the code. Additionally, there are hard limits on some of these services. You can't just run away and do everything you want to do on the planet. They will limit you on what you can do and to the extent. So if you wind up finding yourself in a really big implementation of this, you may find yourself needing to increase the quota capacity that is currently allocated. It sounds counterintuitive, right? They're in the business of making money, but they're also in the business of making sure they protect their reputation and that they have enough compute power behind the service in order to run it and not take everybody else down that's paying for it. So in order to control that, they're setting limits, and if you reach those limits, then essentially the app will break, because you'll wind up getting, I don't know what it might be yet because I haven't hit it, but you'll get some sort of an error message about capacity reached or something to that effect. It may or may not provide you the link that I'm providing for you here, but go ahead and fill out the request to increase your capacity. So let's consider that some prerequisite knowledge moving or going into it. And then with that being said, let's go back over here and talk about installing Azure. Actually, sorry, not installing Azure, OpenAI inside of Azure. So assuming that all of that is well and good, the first step is we're going to go through the Azure configurations, then we're going to go through the custom connector. I'm just going over the high-level steps here. We're going to install and deploy the solution, and then we're going to configure the actual application and talk about some of the options there, talk about the cloud flows and what you might need to adjust there, as well as there is a role that is part of this app, and you'll want to make sure that you have membership into the roles. So we'll circle back and talk to that. All right, so first thing we're going to do is go into Azure. Let's start with, let's see, right here. All right, so I've logged into Azure. I'm in the main portal, and the first thing that you're going to want to search for is OpenAI. So when you do that, you'll get only one item that'll show up in the list. You'll go ahead and click on it, or if you've gotten it already, you'll just click on it here. You'll be taken to this screen immediately. Now, notice this Power Platform Learning. That's what I have for me. You're going to have something different, and you're going to have a distinct name. Also know that this name is very, very important, because what happens is you're building out the endpoint, the URL. This is one of those dynamic pieces. Let me take you over into the code base and show you what that means. So see where this says Power Plat Learning? Let me jump over into the code. In the installation instructions that I give you, I talk about very specific areas like line 10, instance name, line 17, deployment name, so on and so forth. So this item right here under line 10, the host, your name here, that is built based on the name that you give here. So instead of your name here, I would put Power Plat Learning. So this is what you're going to put here for the host, okay? So I'll go back and we can talk about this a little bit more, but in any event, the first thing you're going to do is come up here and click on this Create button, okay? And as soon as you do that, you're going to be taken to this screen. Hopefully you'll have a subscription. If you don't have a subscription, then you'll need to create one or sign up for a free one. Come up here and choose a resource group or create a new resource group. Now this is the name. I have Power Platform Learning. I'll just do Power Platform Learning 2, hopefully, and it's available. And the pricing tier only has one option available. From here on out, it's really just next, next, and next, except for this is an important piece. You want to choose all networks for this. You could secure it down even further if you weren't going to use it for this app. But basically, this just makes it available to selected networks inside of Azure or inside of the Azure Cognitive Services as a resource here. So point is, it's only inside of Azure, and it never leaves Azure. So you can really lock this down. And obviously, if you say no networks can get the resource, you could configure an endpoint connection that would be exclusive way to access this, and so you don't really want it disabled for what we're trying to do here. So it will be open to the public, but you will have it protected with a key, so nobody's actually really going to be able to use it unless, of course, you shared your key and gave it available to just about anybody. All right, so that being said, just choose all networks and click Next. Put whatever tagging you want on, click Next, and at the end just hit Create, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to circle back and go back into here. All right, so that being said, you'll have something like this screen with whatever name that you've got. You're then going to click into the service that you just created. Let me get rid of the survey. And then from here, what you will want to do, and I will suggest this as a suggestion because, well, let's just say this. If I click this straight away, it's going to replace this screen with the Azure OpenAI Studio. And I found myself occasionally needing to get back to this screen, which is a pain in the neck to have to go through all those clicks just to get to the screen again. So what I tend to do, and it's up to you, I right-click on this and I choose Open in a new tab here. So that being said, I've got this new window over here, and now it will log me into Azure Studio, or OpenAI Studio from here. All right, so this is where all of the magic is going to happen. So this is pretty simple, by and large, at least for what you need to do for the app. So a quick introduction. These are the available models to you right now. You are going to use the DaVinci 003. You can only have one implementation of this, so just be cognizant of whatever you create when you do a deployment on this, is that anything that needs to use DaVinci 003, everything is going to have to use the same deployment, not just this app. Okay, so just heads up. So if you thought you were going to create this just for this app, you can't do it, at least not with the way Azure's set up currently. DaVinci 003 is just the way that it is. Now you may need to circle back. Remember I said you might find yourself needing to come back to this screen. You may be able to come back to here and go back to this area and create another essentially instances of cognitive services. I think that might work. I did see in the documentation that you weren't allowed to kind of circumvent different things, so they might not allow it, but in any event. That being said, just know that you come over here to deployments, and I already have mine here, but you'll create a deployment and you'll select the model, which I don't believe it's going to let me do. It's probably going to complain. And you'll go ahead and you'll give it a name. The advanced options, you don't have to worry about it. You can just kind of leave it the way that it is. Right now, that's quite large. So if you need to max it out, you can do it. But anyway, if you never went into here, you wouldn't have seen it. So just choose all of this the way that you want it. This name is also very, very important because going back to the code, the second piece of the option, as you go down through all of this gobbledygook code, it's not going to be there. I have this in the documentation. It's probably easier to do that here. Probably line 144 and 146. So 144, I don't need to worry about it there. I thought that there was a place, for some reason I'm not remembering, where I actually had to list out this deployment because it is part of the endpoint here. I'm just going to search for the keyword my. And maybe it's case sensitive. My. Cancel. My GPT. Okay, so I don't have it in here. I would have sworn. Oh, here it is. It's line 17. Your model name right here. Okay, so when you create this deployment and you choose DaVinci 003, whatever the name that you give here on this line, when I'm highlighting that gobbledygook, that is the information you're going to need for line 17. You're going to replace these double brackets, and then you're going to put in, whatever you're going to put in here, okay? So that being said, that should be enough to explain what you're doing here, okay? Now, if you look down here at the example, the instance name, this is the thing flagged in yellow, and just to kind of, keep all of this together in your mind's eye. This Power Plat Learning that I have here out at the root when you create the OpenAI service itself, this name right here is what belongs into this yellow area right here. This blue area that says deployment name, that's going to come from in Azure Studio, the deployment name, that's this guy over here. So those are the two dynamic pieces of information you just need to keep straight. If you do that and you edit this properly and perfectly, life will be good. And so then what you'll need to do is you'll go through and you'll copy and paste everything that you need to. I'm actually going to let's see here. Let me take this off screen for just a quick moment here, guys, and pause the video. Okay, I paused the video just so that I could copy something out. So assuming you've edited this file correctly and you've got it the way that you need, you'll go ahead and you'll select everything here and you'll copy it to the clipboard. And as soon as you do that, you'll come over into the Power Platform. Make sure you're in the environment that you want to be in, where you're going to deploy this out. And just a quick tangent on custom connectors. So custom connectors, when they're created, they have their own GUIDs. And those GUIDs are proprietarily, unfortunately, in isolation to the environment to which they created. You can give it the same name all day long, and it will sort of kind of work, but it will wind up creating an excessive amount of connections, not custom connectors, but connections, as you keep updating the environment code from, say, the development into the QA. You'll just wind up getting an unusual, ugly amount of connections that'll build up. So that being said, make sure that you create this custom connector in each of the environments, and as you move it from, even if it's inside of a solution, as you move it from environment A to environment B, and you'll see that because I'm actually installing this for the first time in this environment, so you'll see this in action in just a few moments. So right now I have a custom OpenAI connector. This isn't the Azure one. So I'm going to choose new up here, and I'm going to go from blank. And I'll just call this Azure OpenAI. This is important. Name it exactly this way. Okay, so hit continue. And then what you want to do is you come over here and toggle this switch to the Swagger editor. And this is where you're going to paste in all that YAML. Okay, so with this YAML information there, I should now have a custom connector ready to go. I can fast forward all the way over to the test area. But the first thing I need to do is create my connector. And then, unfortunately, after I've created the connector, I'm going to have to create a connection to the connector, and then I can finally test it. And you do want to follow these steps, because if you don't test a connector and then you start installing the app and then the app doesn't work, you're not going to know if the app broken, is the connector broken, is the connection broken. So by following these meticulous steps, you'll be able to ensure pretty good success in installation. Okay, so I've just created the connector. Now I need to create a connection. And as a result of this, I'll have to come here to click New Connection. And I don't know, but this has been happening quite a bit to me. I'm clicking on it, nothing's happening. It's super frustrating. It's like, what the heck is going on? There's something in the JavaScript or the site, I don't know what it is specifically, but it breaks. Just refresh the screen. Unfortunately, you'll probably have to go in and edit it just to get all the way back there again, which you do. Okay, so let's go ahead and edit. Oh, and a quick call out. You see this weird green custom connector icon? If you come over here to GitHub and under custom connector, I provided you an Azure OpenAI PNG. If you go into this file and you just download it, you can go ahead then and modify this with the that icon. This way it's a little bit easier for you to differentiate the service from anything else. Otherwise, they're all going to have that same green icon. This is optional. You don't have to do this at all, but just know that it's there. Again, if you're interested, it's inside of the custom connector along with the YAML file. Completely optional, again, if you don't want to do or handle that. All right, so that being said, I need to come all the way back over here to test. Because I changed the graphical icon, I need to update the connector. And then I'll be able to circle back and create the connection to test the connector properly. Now, I've already built into the custom connector for you a prompt so that you should be able to test and get a response. All right, so now hopefully, and I just hit create. Life is good. The weird thing is another weird thing. It kicks you out just to then make you go all the way back over here into custom connectors. And yet again, click edit, click on test. Now I have the connection. Now you should be able to scroll here at the bottom. So here's the prompt. It says, what is the lat long of Georgia in the United States? And I'm going to go ahead and hit test. I should get us 200. That's what you're going to look for. That means success. And then down here, you're looking for this under choices for the body. You're looking for text. Text, not test. And then you're going to look for the response. And it says the latitude and longitude of Georgia, blah, 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 blah. And so now you have a response. This means the connection and the connector is working. And so the assimilation of this by the application should now work, theoretically, right? So I haven't had a problem yet, but I'm just saying that if you're having problems, this is a good way of breaking it down step by step to make sure that you don't have issues. All right, now we're going to come over here to click on Solutions to go to the next step. So let's go circle back and consult the installation documentation. So a couple things. We've gone through the Azure. I just went through with you the custom connector, and if you just follow here the lines, I've explained the examples and how it correlates to the Azure configuration. Now what you want to do is install and deploy the solution file. So we'll jump back over here and we'll come back over here to Chat Assist. We'll drill into the solutions folder. We'll click on this zip and we'll click the little download. That should download it now into the local area. Click back over to the solutions area. I'm still in the right environment. I'm still in solutions. This is an old ChatGPT thing that I had in this environment. All right, import solution. Browse and downloads, and there it is. Click next, import, and now we essentially sit back and wait for the next couple of screens. This is an unmanaged solution, some advanced steps, everything looks good. Click next. Now it's looking for connections to Dataverse, and it's looking for connections to Outlook. So we'll click next. Now comes the magic of the environment variables. So the admin list, this is a comma separated list. All you got to do is put the emails of your administrators in your organization that you want. So if you've got 500 of these people, then you'll need 500 email addresses separated, separated by a comma. And this will allow them to see the full menu, which will allow them to get to the administration screens. For me personally, I'm going to leave this off. We'll circle back and edit this later because I want you to see what it looks like as a user, and then I want you to see what it looks like as an admin. This is the environment app URL. You will not have this at the particular moment. So what you should do is just click import, because it's not until you import the solution that the Canvas application will then have been created, and only after it's created will it have a web link or a URL for it. So we need to wait for it to import so that we can go grab that URL. And the reason that this is used, or how this is used in the application, when you click on the logo in the top left corner of the application, it essentially refreshes the screen, which starts a new chat session. This means that you won't have any contextually sensitive information going back into the next conversation. This works like this in ChatGPT. You have to delete and or create a new conversation. It doesn't necessarily refresh the screen per se, but what it does is goes out and just essentially creates a whole new thread for you to have that conversation around. All right, so I'm going to let this finish importing, and I'll be back in just a quick moment. Okay, so as you can see, we now have successfully installed the solution here called Chat Assist. So let's now come over here to apps, and I now have a Chat Assistant app. So a couple things. Notice that the environment variables still need to be filled out here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here on this ellipsis and come down to details. I could also have it selected and come up here to the ribbon and choose details as well. And this is what we want to copy out, this web link right here. Okay. So that being said, let's go back out to the main. Let's click on the environment variables, and this is where we can paste this in. Now I'll just go ahead and save this now. And so with that being said, we should be able to run the application. So one of the things that I think we're going to need to do is to circle back and show you about the custom connector. I'm going to go in here, and it's going to ask me to authenticate to this custom connector that doesn't exist in the context that it originally existed in. And here it is. You can see I've got a different icon for it as well. I'm going to choose Do Not Allowed. Even though it's the same name, I used a different icon on purpose to illustrate this. So the reason is, again, the way the custom connectors work, they are associated with a GUID. And as you move from environment to environment, the GUIDs change. So the best way to deal with it, at least for now, or that I know of, if you know of a better way, leave a comment in the description box below on how to try to, I don't know, deal with this better. But the only way that I have found that works well is just come back into the app. When you move it across environments, remove the connection and then just circle back and go back to connectors. And then what you'll do is you'll add it again, Azure OpenAI. So you see it now has a new icon. Tell it okay. Life is good. I use the shortcut of just clicking to publish, because it does the same thing as save and publish, as opposed to clicking save and then publish, which is 2 clicks. I always just click this. In any event, so this is now moving through, saved and published. I click that, and now I should be able to get out. I'll go ahead and leave. That being said, I should be able to now click on the app. Now, remember, I'm a user. I'm not an admin, because I haven't done all of that. Now, interestingly enough, it's asking me to switch account. So don't allow. Consents needed. Let's do the refresh. Okay, so I remember I hit publish, and so when I published, the change that I made didn't get published out just yet. Okay, so if this happens to you, look for this banner that says that this app, I forget what it said, but basically it amounts to, hey, there's a new version coming, and we'll let you know when it's ready. Now you can continuously just, hit refresh on this, or just click here, and it will continuously refresh. So we'll just hang out here just a few seconds until we get the pop-up. So the pop-up never came, but what might have been on screen was that this was a development environment. I'll be able to tell pretty quickly whether or not this thing's working or not. I'm going to shut this all down again. Let's go ahead and launch this. It should have fixed it. Okay, it does. So it's not yelling at me anymore. And the information, though, is valid, because when you do the save, publish, or publish and save all in the one step you saw me do, the change didn't take into effect yet. So it doesn't know that it's pointing to the new connector. So expect it to error out depending on how fast it actually gets published out. So if you find yourself having to refresh at least the first time, this is why. Okay, so now with this being said, the application's up and running, life is good, and you click on the menu and you see you only get a handful of items, okay? So I'm going to circle back. Actually, let's just do a quick test. Let's do how. See if we get a response. Okay, cool. So I've got an answer, I got a reply, everything looks like it's working good. We'll click on the rating, give feedback, works. Okay, that looks all good and well. And so I think everything's good, but we can't get to anything other than just the user logs, and that's by design. And by the way, the little copy, or the little scissors, means that you can copy out just the prompt. So I'll paste it up here. You can see that's my prompt. And then of course you can copy out the response, which in order to see that, probably have to just bring open Notepad, and then I can paste it in here. And so you can copy out the response that you get from the AI and use it elsewhere. Okay, that being said, let's now configure this for administration. See, we got one more environment variable. All right, this says JSON, and I could have done it with text as well. I chose it with JSON because honestly, programmatically, it should be taking a JSON. I don't know if anybody from Microsoft is watching this. I've sent an email out to the team that did the documentation, but the documentation on this one area for environment variables is really, really weak when it comes to talking about data types. My expectation as a developer/user on this Power Platform, specifically in Canvas apps, is if I enter in JSON, or I tell it a JSON data type, I expect to be able to use that object as a JSON object in the app. That's not the case. I don't know why. It treats it as plain text. So the fact that it says JSON, maybe I'll get around to swapping out the environment variable and changing the data type. But as of right now, it says JSON. Just know that all you need to do is enter in a comma-separated list. And if it's just you and you're the only admin, you just put one email. That's all you need to do. But if I needed to do multiple, if I needed to do multiple people, I'll just comma separate them just like that. You can barely see it, but there is a comma there, I promise. In any event, so we'll just hit save and close. Now that's done, we'll relaunch the app. And it's still telling me I'm in a developer environment, which is fine. Now when I click the menu, I now have my email address matching up to my user profile function email in there, and you can go into the code and see that as well. So now with that said, I should be able to come back and I should be able to see the feedback that I just gave. I should be able to come back here into the AI reporting. Obviously there's not much here to see. In any event, all of this information is lo and behold pretty good, and the application is working as expected. So that is how you install this application. If you have any questions, shoot a comment in the comment box and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you.